my role at Westinghouse Electric was at first to be an electrical engineer fresh out of college, but after a few years moved into marketing. And of course, back in the days when I was doing that marketing, international was not a big business for Westinghouse. The major focus was domestic, and as it became a multinational corporation, my experience in that area expanded. It expanded to cover the world, and from a marketing standpoint, that included taking technology that Westinghouse had and selling it, leveraging it in a way so that we could enter markets that we normally couldn't. So it opened up an experience curve for me that had me taking technologies that were proven into places where those technologies had not been proven and turned them into products and services. So it was a good backdrop for what I was going to do in the future. The biggest change of all was time frame. There's a lot of changes. There's a significant difference between two different organizations, one corporate organization versus a university or an academic institution. But the time frame was the hardest thing to adjust to. In the real world, so to speak, or in the corporate world, we talk about times in seconds. We talk about times in microseconds and even in nanoseconds, milliseconds. The shortest measurement of time on a university campus is a semester. And that's not bad, that just is. And what you have to do is be able to translate between the two. If you're going to interact between those two worlds, you have to be able to translate the time differential. That was the biggest change. Well, my corporate experience in terms of assistance came primarily from two things. One was experience. I had spent 28 years in the corporate world, and therefore I knew how to do operations. I knew how to run different human resource scenarios, and I knew basically how to make things happen within an organization as it's defined in the corporate world. That translates well into universities if you take into account different things, including the time differential that I talked about. But in addition to that, I'd also received a lot of training in the corporate world in doing a lot of those things. And what I found in the academic world was that even though we teach that in the academic world, we have business schools in our universities, rarely are the folks who are involved in administration schooled in how to do those things. So it helped me to kind of adjust to that difference, and has worked very well. Well, that was one of the biggest steps for me in terms of the transition, and that was universities, when they looked at commercializing innovation, or as we called it when I first came on board, technology transfer. The approaches that were used were based on university type of approaches as opposed to what we would call real-world marketing. So a lot of the different scenarios were built around patenting, were built around the fact that the research was going on and to try and evaluate the value of the research itself. Was it rigorous? Was it complete? Did it meet the requirements of the academy? In the world of technology commercialization, or as I like to call it, innovation commercialization, it's slightly different. In fact, it's more than slightly different. It's quite a bit different. In the academic world, you don't say that you can do something until you can absolutely prove that you can do it. It's the requirement of the world. It's the requirement of the academy. And your colleagues take great pleasure in making sure that that's the case, because if it isn't, they also will take great pleasure in proving you wrong. In my world of innovation commercialization, I will tell you I can spin gold from straw, and I'll let you prove otherwise. So with that mentality, the transition that I was bringing coming from the corporate world was to convince faculty, convince students, and convince staff and any researcher that had an idea that they needed to come quickly, and that we would then evaluate it, not on whether it worked or not, but whether it had a market. The working part would come later. So that the ability to know that and the ability to set up an organization that responded to that was new to the world of university tech transfer. Well, what we've done is put together a strategic plan at UNCG that takes into account what the return on the investment is for the university. And what it is primarily not in the form just exclusively in dollars and cents. It comes in the form of what the university brings to the community, what the University of the 21st Century stands for. And from that, we've built a strategic plan, transitioned an organization, and we've got not only technology transfer, as it's generally called, we call it innovation commercialization, but we have an organization that's also involved in entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship centers. So that gives the staff, students, and faculty, and in fact the community to a certain degree, a full service operation that can provide all of the things that are needed to take an idea from the lab or from somebody's mind or their notebooks or scribblings to the shop floor or the factory to the grocery store shelf.